Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Strategic Planning and Policy Committee meeting of the 1st of March, first day of autumn, isn't it? It's a bit chillier this morning, I think, so hopefully it'll signify a change in the weather long term because I'm a bit over all this heat. But anyway, onwards and upwards with our agenda. Starting, first of all, just a quick reminder, obviously we're being live streamed. First of all, apologies. I have one for lateness from Mariata. I understand her plane was a bit delayed, so she will join us when she's able. And obviously the standing apology from Hazel. So do I have somebody's happy to move those? Roger and Marcus. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Right, moving on then to disclosures of members' interests. Do we have any today in terms of today's agenda? Anybody conflicted at all? No, nobody's waving frantically at me, so that's good. We can scoot on from that one. Next issue is then late items. I'm not aware of there being any, but if there are, raise them with me now. No. Okay, that's great. And then that moves us then to the confirmation of the order of the meeting. I don't believe there are any changes. Obviously, after this meeting, there are 4 workshops, and with a bit of luck, we might be finished about midday-ish. But in terms of order, I'm thinking that's as it appears in our agenda. So that is good. So then let's move on then to the confirmation of our minutes.
Sorry, we just need to move.
Oh, sorry. Yep. It's good to get too far. Roger and Lou, all those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Cool. Moving then on to confirmation of the minutes of our previous meeting, which was held on the 1st of February. Those minutes appear starting on page 7. So let's just flick through them quickly. 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13 and 14. Any corrections or issues to address there? Nobody is waving their hands frantically at me, which is positive. So we have a recommendation there on page 7 to confirm that these are taken and read and confirmed as true and correct record of that meeting. Mike's happy to move. Graham's happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Great. So then we move on to our first substantive report, which is the Community Services Quarterly Report to the 31st of December 2021, and it has been delivered to us today by Brad Ward, who I have to say, Brad, I picked up when we had our pre-meeting, you were known as Brad Walsh. So you had a brief name change. You're back to Brad Ward now. So welcome. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm sure you would have got more hits on the internet if you'd had Brad Walsh instead of me.
A few jokes, you reckon?
Yeah, much better punchlines. Morena tātou, tihei Māori ora kia koutou katoa. This morning I'd just like to pull a few highlights from our quarterly report. Quarter 2 was certainly another busy period for our community services whānau. Our vandalism, we're continuing to see really high numbers or high levels of vandalism across our parks and public toilets. The damage has become what I would describe as much more intentional rather than opportunistic, which is a bit of a shame. We're seeing things like arson, people using tools to cut or remove assets. We're seeing increased graffiti and just a general disregard for our public assets, really.
Could I ask a question on that?
Yep, sure, Councillor Goodwin.
Have you any reason at all, or can you think of why all of a sudden we've got this big change in the level? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Gordon. We're at a bit of a loss ourselves as to why we're seeing an increase. I mean, well, I don't think it's specifically targeted at council. I can only presume that it's linked to the ongoing fatigue and uncertainty of COVID-19. You know, people are sort of in this cycle, I guess, of frustration. But I guess I'm only speculating. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint exactly what it is at the moment. But yeah, just a different rise that we're seeing across the board.
It must be social somewhere. I can't see it being against council. It's too much and too extreme to be a reaction.
Yeah,
I
so
think
I'm not
it's
sure
some
if
social influence somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure if private businesses are finding the same thing or not, or schools. I wouldn't be able to comment on that, but yeah, that's I guess where we are laying the blame, but I could be wrong. But yeah, Stegger's belief of how some members of the community think it's okay to trash out assets and just leave a trail of destruction to be cleaned up. In that regard, we are still working through our park security improvement project at Gaslight Theatre, Pukemako, Bulmer's Landing, and Te Amuru Cemetery, some of our bigger hotspots. There has been some delays to this project through supplier availability and product that we're needing to get in to carry out some of this work. And again, that's largely due to COVID-19 as well. I also understand the public paces bylaw for antisocial driving is on the agenda for discussion later today, and that'll be something that would certainly assist in our space, especially our more remote locations. Also, between Christmas and New Year's Eve, Naroto were informed of Algae Bloom at Naroto. This triggered a public health warning from the Waikato District Health Board, which was upgraded to an extreme public health warning in January. The increase in cyanobacterial levels alongside the high temperatures of the water have caused the lake to become anoxic, causing fish to become hypoxic and die. There was a mass fish die-off at the lake, and the hot days caused a very unpleasant experience for anyone that was down there.
Can I just interrupt you for a minute? Claire has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a few questions about that, because while you were reporting on what actually happened, yeah, I've had some people get in touch with me. They're just absolutely shocked about the state of things there. And, you know, some people have said to me that they never want to go to Lake Noroto again, you know, it'd be good to know, obviously, you know, it's a result of quite a build-up of things over time. And I know that the council has done quite a bit of investment in trying to improve environmental outcomes there. But obviously, it's not enough. And I just wondered if there's any plan to let the public know what council has been trying to do, and in collaboration with local landowners as well. But then any plans to try and address these things in the future?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor St Pierre. Definitely, I think council has been doing some fantastic work over the years. Like what we're seeing as a result of decades, if not almost a century, of farming practices or activity around the lake edge. And I think over recent years, you know, when I say recent, I'm talking sort of 10, 20, maybe even 30 years now, where there's been a really shift to protect those lake edges, including obviously restoration planting, but also fencing. I know that council's been involved in some purchasing of land to try and revert that back to native planting to try and alleviate some of those nutrients getting into the lake. So I think there has been some significant work and investment that has already gone into that space. And when Councillors Stolwick, Brown and Mayor Jim met with myself, Gary, and Waikato Regional elected members, as well as Fish and Game, you know, I think the feedback from the Waikato Regional Council and even from Fish and Game themselves was that Waipa are sort of leading the space compared to some of the other local territories around the country. There was definitely acknowledgement that we have done some investment in that space. So I think we're in, you know, what we have done today has been what we can do in terms of our fiscal responsibilities. I think there's always more education that we can do to the community to take them on that journey, and I guess an event like this does bring it to the fore. And yeah, I mean, there's always more stuff that we can do, and we'll continue to look at innovative ways of what we can do to change that. Mayor Jim had some ideas, and he put them to Dr. Matt Allen when we were on site. And yeah, there are some things we can do, but there will be a cost that is tied to those. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a pleasant experience to be down there, and we are still removing some birds from the lake as well, because there is still avian botulism present. While the cyanobacteria levels have dropped down to a safe level, we are still seeing some high numbers. Well, sorry, no, not high numbers. The numbers are of dead birds are reducing. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sorry.
Thanks, Brad. Now I've got Mayor Jim, Mike, and then Liz for comments.
Oh, you're on mute there, Mayor Jim.
Had to be someone first off, didn't it? Thanks, Madam Chair. And just following on from Claire's comments, look, Council has done a huge amount around Lake Naroto and other peat lakes over the years, but it's obviously not sufficient for Naroto. We've looked at some radical options in the past, from dredging it to introducing algal-eating mullet or into the lake to try and control those algal blooms, and they've always, I suppose, failed, or well, not failed. They haven't been put into practice because of lack of certainty on whether they will work or not. Personally, I think we need to try something radical to try and reverse the trends in not only Naroto but some of our other lakes, even Te Kuutu. But just the reason for the comment is that, and it was only yesterday that I was approached with Barbara Kuriger and a representative from Ergozyme New Zealand Limited, which is a company using enzymes to treat water from dairy sheds, oxidation ponds, etc., and breaking down the biological mass, I suppose, in those waterways. And it seems to me that it's another opportunity for us to look at another solution. As I say, it was only a marketing push yesterday. If it's as successful as claimed, then it could be the answer to our prayers. But it certainly needs to go through the process of discussing with the regional council in particular in terms of consent and iwi as to whether it's appropriate. And if it's a natural product, it may well satisfy the concerns that the community have introducing something else into the lake. So look, I've spoken to Gary this morning, and we'll pass the information on to the region and see if there's something worth investigating. As I say, I think we need to be looking at something radical on our peat lakes because, as Brad has said, it's decades worth of sediment and nutrients that are locked up in that lake, and unless we can find something to break it down or pump it out, we're going to be continually bombarded with these problems over the hot summer period. So look, as I say, nothing's off the table as far as I'm concerned. It's a really valuable recreational resource for the community. It's extremely popular as a walkway, and we need to try and do something to get it back to a reasonable state.
Thanks, Jim. Mike, Liz, and Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Good morning, Brad. Hey, just a couple of about 4 questions I've got. But before I start, thank you for your decision making outside of the council, your other job that you've got outside of that. Thank you there. Hey, just with regards to the library, just all those books on the floor and things, I guess it just shows. I guess this is a wider picture of the need for Cambridge to really consider trying to get this library project back into the next LTP. And that there's obviously some good books that need to go out, but hardly ideal at the moment of how we're trying to sort of present those to the public. So that's just more a statement, I guess, just for all of us just looking forward. Next one is, hey, the extra spending that you alluded to with regard to damage and the clean, etc., around the toilets and other bits and bobs of damage. Any idea how much extra funding you may require? Have you done the analysis?
Oh, we haven't done any in-depth analysis on that. It sort of just comes out of our general maintenance budget, which is, we'd normally do proactive maintenance on some of our assets, like might be signage cleaning or path cleaning, and it's those sorts of things that get missed, I guess, if we're having to spend more on repairing and replacing assets that have been damaged.
Yep.
So that's where the community will probably see the biggest hit, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. No, thanks for that. In staff recruitment, I'm not quite sure when the report was written, whether it was a week or two ago, but any positive moves on that front, trying to get some staff?
This report focuses on quarter 2, but even into quarter 3, we're still seeing some of those same recruitment struggles going on. We are currently, our reserve planner has been vacant since December. We're currently going through the second phase or second round of recruitment there. Our parks team, trying to source good qualified or good experienced operators is definitely a bit of a challenge for us at the moment, and we've still got at least 3 vacancies that I'm aware of, and that's in that team as well.
Yeah, right.
The libraries and museum teams aren't so bad. We'll be able to backfill those reasonably okay.
Yeah, right. It's a shame to hear that. I mean, we've had issues there in the past because the public, and rightly so, start jumping up and down when they see things starting to sort of deteriorate that are visual. But it's largely out of our hands. It's just a labour market at the moment.
Sorry, Councillor, we are trying to bring in some in the parks team, especially trying to bring in some contractors to help support our workload there. But there's still an impact, I suppose. Yeah, all right. No, good to hear. Hey, and the last one is that heritage funds. How did that 35,000? How did that get divvied up? Do you know? So we're still working on that. There was a split decision at the time, so we're hopefully looking to see how Hazel feels later this week or early next week. We don't have to actually go back to those groups until the 17th of March, so we do have some time to work through that as we finalise it.
All right, thanks. Kia ora. Thanks for that. Cheers, Brad.
Liz, then Marcus.
Thank you, Susan. Hey, just on the vandalism. So I know the suggestion there is to look at cameras, and I can highly recommend just how great they are. They are brilliant at I guess at hindering a lot of that kind of stuff, because you've got video footage there to catch the culprits. So worked very, very well for me at Mighty River Domain. So yeah, the sooner we can get cameras in, the better. Just going back to Lake Naroto. So I just wondered if we actually are able to put some information on our website about where we've come with Lake Naroto, the work that we've done in the past, because a lot of our criticism has come from just lack of knowledge of what council has done over many, many years. And I just think that would be helpful to have some background and some explanation as to why the lake is in that state. And it's simply just, people seeing dead fish, or, obviously, fish that are through lack of oxygen and birds and things like that, that with education comes a lot more knowledge around the work that we've actually done in that space. So we have a website. I just thought perhaps we could pop something on there, and to quite an in-depth, I think, put some real technical speak in there as well. I think some people actually would really enjoy seeing where we've come with this. So that was just a suggestion that I had. And Brad, I'm going to ask you, and it's not in your report, but I also just wanted to ask about Waipuki and how we're getting on with the name change for the future. And perhaps we can, it could be an agenda item for next meeting. I just wanted to ask where we were at with that.
For the name change of Waipuki itself? Or?
No, the name change we've been looking at. We had submissions some time ago to look at the change of the road name. And of course, with Waipuki, we're in I guess it's not a public reserve, so we know that we're not going to be hindered too much by a change in the name of that road going into the park. So yeah, just wanted to sort of get an idea of when we might be able to start looking at that.
Yeah, thanks. That's not something we've got on our immediate radar, but we can definitely add it to a future agenda as we work through that. I think the potential general consensus, or general interest to work through that
If I can just add through the chair, there has been some recent discussions, Councillor Stolwick, in terms of the request that was received through the naming policy and with another member of the community. So we've been talking around those opportunities and the requirement to get an application for that. So happy to provide an update on that, but it's still working through in terms of the background and timing of other developments that need to occur for that person. So that's where that at. But in terms of what Brad was referring to, it's not current on the books for the team at the moment because we're still waiting for that further information and alignment of timing.
Madam Chair, can I just add to?
Okay, Phil.
Can I add to that? So I've been working with Sam Hewitt on this and Dawn Ingalls. So Sam is the son of John Hewitt, as many of you will know. So John Hewitt Drive, and the family are very supportive and very keen to relocate John Hewitt Drive up to the farm on Temero. Sam's doing a subdivision on the farm and looking at some roading layouts and what have you there. But anyway, cut a long story short, there's a lot of discussions, or there's discussions going with council staff, with Dawn Ingalls, of relocating that name in the near future. So, yep.
Right. Are you happy with that, Liz? So have you got any other questions or comments that if you finished your...
Yeah. So look, it's not really about the John Hewitt Drive. It's more about the new name. So yeah, that's the discussion that we need to have with the community. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Liz. So I have Marcus and Lou, and then Graham.
Yeah, I agree with what Liz said about making what we've done on Lake Naroto more public by putting more information up there, because it's we have tried to do really good work, and I don't think the public's really aware of that. Have you been looking at what Jeffrey Toe's been posting up on the Te Awaru and surrounding grapevine pages? Because he's doing a 3D mapping of Lake Naroto, and it's really interesting to see what he's found. And I'm wondering, is he actually working with council, or is he doing this by himself?
Thanks, Councillor Gower. I personally aren't aware of the work that he's doing. I haven't heard of that or seen that. So yeah, we can look into that with our comms team and see what's going on there.
Yeah, I'll send you the links. It seems to be a project he's doing by himself, but he's discovered boats under the water and bits and pieces. It's been really interesting. And one radical thing I heard about improving the water quality is that we should allow motorboats back on Lake Naroto, because having the motorboats on there will stir up all the sediment and perhaps re-oxygenate the water. And another thing I've got to ask is, what happened with the Heritage Fund? With Mike's comments too, what was the conflict?
There wasn't a conflict as such. It's just that there was no consensus at the meeting that we did have. We had a split of equal councillors with maybe different opinions, and so we're just waiting to go back again with Hazel if she does become available to progress that forward. As I said, we're under no time constraint there, so we do have time to work through that process as we normally would.
Right. Thank you, Brad. Is that all, Marcus?
Can we take our motorboats?
No.
Okay, Councillor Lou, and then Graham, and then Phil.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. My concern is that we're seeing this vandalism, certainly in the toilets, but we're also seeing it in the cemeteries. And we've also had Pukeatu and Anzac Green actually attacked as well. We lost a lanyard and a New Zealand flag from Anzac Green, and we've actually seen Pukeatu broken into. I'd like to thank the team that got together from the council and put locks on a church. We had to put deadlocks on a church to stop people getting into it, which is a bit of an unusual thing. But I'm just wondering whether we should actually progress a little bit further and get into the local media, get out there and say that this is costing everybody a lot of money. And it is a very negative practice. You know, when you're targeting toilets and cemeteries and churches, I start to wonder at the logic behind this and what is producing it, what is possessing it. Just a thought.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. That's something we're definitely working through at the moment. We do plan to try and highlight some of these concerns and ongoing issues we've got.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Thanks, Lou. Look, just following on from your comment about Pukeatua, it's pretty sad day when people break into churches and steal crosses and vases, isn't it? And Liz, just following on from your comment about TV, about cameras, my local primary here, Puahui, was broken into last week, and obviously some camera footage was picked up of the 3 people that came onto the school and removed quite an amount of property, much to the shock and horror of the children, I have to say. And it was spread far and wide on Facebook, on social media, the pictures of these 3 culprits. And I understand they contacted the school and asked the school to take their pictures down. They didn't like their faces being blasted all over the internet. So it's kind of interesting. I'm yet to find out whether they're able to negotiate return of the leaf blowers and the children's flags and boxes of juicies and batteries and all sorts of things that they stole. But yeah, I think they do act as a real deterrent if people are aware that they're there. So Graham, I think you were next, and then Phil.
Yeah. Thanks, Madam Chair. The key ingredient over the lake is there has not been enough rain. Rain in, rain out, flushing. If you go back to the history of the peat lakes, you'll know that they finally disappear, and that's evident in Roto Orangi, where there was a lot of peat lakes. But if you go back 18 months when Australia was in that severe drought, the Murray River never had water coming in the top, and it wasn't going out the bottom. And they had absolute millions, not thousands, they had tens of millions of fish. And if you go onto the ABC website, you'll see it, but it was horrific. But now that the rains have come, that's restored. But I don't know what the long-term future is for Naroto unless you have an aeration system, a bit like Te Kuiti. But that rain is the vital ingredient going through and keeping it flush. Sorry, that's my farming background for today.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Philip and Marcus, have you just got your hand up from last time or what? Okay, so Philip.
Yep, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Brad, for your report. Going back to this vandalism thing again, and I can't see anything about Guttix Road or Guttix Park up Mangakawa Reserve in your report. The vandalism there is just continuing. The 2 surrounding landowners to the property, their emotions are running really high and their tanks are empty. They're just fed up with it, and they're getting their farm fences destroyed or wrecked quite regularly. There's lots of people that do the burnouts up there, leaving bottles and rubbish and sanitary items in the paddocks, and if they're asked to move on, then they're just given abuse and fingers and things like that. So they each spend tens of thousands of dollars on rates each year, and they're wanting some action. And Liz mentioned about cameras. I know there's discussion around locking the gate, getting automatic lock gates, or locking the gates three nights a week. I think that's been proposed or been actioned. So yeah, they're just fed up, and it's a beautiful place up there, as many of us have experienced, and many of the community experienced in a lawful way. But their emotions are running high, and their tanks are empty. They just want something done, and somehow we've got to find the money to put these cameras up, or lock the gate, or do both. So yeah.
But potentially, Philip, the public places bylaw, which we're addressing later on in our agenda, may well provide some relief for those residents up there. It's been something that the Te Awamutu Community Board has driven quite strongly on account of the activities at places like Bulmers and around the district. So it will certainly encapsulate other areas that might not have necessarily been the motivator behind the request to change this bylaw, but it will certainly catch those activities in those areas and hopefully provide the police with some teeth and potentially some relief for those residents. So thanks for drawing that to our attention. Mike,
thanks.
Brad.
Just in response to Councillor Coles, Councillor Coles, it is mentioned in my report, Goodex Road or Goodex Reserve has many names, and Pukemakau is its official name now, so that is covered under that name in the report. And you're correct that we do close the reserve 3 nights a week at the moment. We can't lock the gate. It's a public road, so without a formal road stopping, we can't actually lock that gate at night time. So there's a process we're looking at doing. We are doing some of the cameras, speed humps, new bollards and things as part of a program work under that security project we're doing at the moment, park security project. So there is works funded and allocated to occur there over the coming months, or hopefully weeks. But again, that's been one of the ones that's been delayed with some COVID constraint.
Yeah, and I think that the speed humps have been ripped up a bit too from wheelies and all that sort of stuff. So they're sort of working but not working, is where they're getting destroyed, which, you know, it's costing us money like all the other vandalism around the place. And the Taylor family, their ancestors gifted this land to the community, and they just feel like they're getting kicked in the face now. So because of this destruction, but you know, we need to action some cameras up there, or locking the gates, you know, the automatic gates and things like that too. But I understand what you're saying about the roading and all that sort of the law, you know, the legal side of things. So yeah.
I see Brian Hudson's jumped online. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to add to that at all, or am I just grasping at straws there?
Sorry, I've just joined and haven't caught up with the conversation.
That's okay. I thought you may have been listening in and thought you had something to add. No, that's fine. Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Mike, did you have something further?
Yeah. Hey, Brad, have we worked, or it could be a Sally question also, Ngāti Hoa are involved up there, eh? Is the land sort of been gifted back? Like, are we working with them in terms of this and protecting the whenua, I guess? Yes,
definitely. Thanks, Mike. Pukemakau is a joint management agreement. So as part of the Ngāti Hoa settlement, Pukemakau was returned to them. So we are working close with them on this as well. And they've been very supportive through the process of the security improvements we're doing.
Yeah, right. No, good. Yeah, thanks.
Great. Well, I think we've probably pulled apart your report, Brad. Thank you very much. And was there anything else you wanted to draw to our attention? Obviously, lots of highlights, a couple of lowlights, so we can't ignore the positive outcomes in terms of the library numbers and what have you. So was there anything else you wanted to draw to our attention or just clarify with us?
Just to promote the team, really. They've done really well, especially the library team, museum team, moving to the COVID-19 protection framework and the subsequent vaccine passport. You know, they've had to deal with some unpleasant conversations, but they've really nailed all of those and how their professionalism and done really well through some difficult times. So our click and collect service is up and running as well, and that's continuing to see increase in uptake. So we're definitely seeing some really positive stuff as well. And the team's been awesome.
Oh, that's great. Great news. Great to hear. Thank you, Brad. I see Councillor St Pierre's just put her hand up. Claire, did you have another question or observation?
Yes, I did, because further in the report, there's mention of the work at 205 Sainsbury Road, Brad. And I just wonder, there was a plan developed by council quite a number of years ago. And is that the plan that's being used as a basis for this time round, or is it a fresh start?
No, so that we'll be building on that. Thanks, Councillor St Pierre. That's one with our reserve plan had been out since December. That has stalled since that time. We're actually looking to bring in a contractor to help us, deliver that through this year. So definitely plans to continue with that. It's just been paused just while we had that vacancy.
Oh, that's great. And I'm really hoping that there will be a chance for, some community input into
Definitely.
that. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Great. Well, I think that probably brings the hot seat that you're sitting on to an end, Brad. Thank you so much. Really great report, and I'm really pleased to hear that you're acknowledging the hard work of your team, because they're not easy times, and as you say, you're down a few members, and community behaviour is creating a bit of a challenge, I guess, for many of your community-facing staff. So it's really good to acknowledge the good work that they're doing under trying circumstances at times. So thank you for that. So on page 15 there, we have a recommendation to receive Brad's report. I'm happy to move from the chair. Lou is going to second that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Brad, and pass on our thanks to your team.
Thanks, everyone. Matua.
Cheers. So that brings us to our next item, which is to be presented by Graham Pollard. It's a determination report for the review of the Waipa District Council Water Supply Bylaw 2013. Good morning, Graham.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors and colleagues. This is a report to determine whether we should move forward with our statutory review of the Water Supply Bylaw 2013. It is, as you might be aware, slightly early. And the reason for that is to try to reduce a rather large bylaw review programme that's coming up in 2023. But it also means that we have an opportunity to get the views of the Waipa community going forward and going into the water reform, so we can get this out of the way early. I was hoping to have someone here from the Waters team, but I think COVID might be causing us problems with that. So that would be a shame, but anyway, also got Mary Rinaldi from GMD Consultants who's been helping us with this. Now, I'm happy to take the report as read if you are and move straight to questions. I do have one already, which was around water sources that we say are not currently covered by the bylaw. The one that the team had in mind was particularly Frontier Road, which has come on stream since the 2013 bylaw. And also Hicks Road is included in the bylaw, and that's now closed. So we're looking for a more generic wording so we can move water, or we can add water supplies, close them down without having to review the bylaw every time, which is what we should have been doing. So I'm happy to move to any questions, and hopefully it's not too technical and I can answer them, or with Mary's help, we can answer them.
Thank you, Graham. Welcome, Mary. Now I have a question there from Roger and then Mayor Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Graham, the question that I would like to ask is just how urgent is this review? I'm really aware of the number of reviews and discussion documents, everything else that's out there, the Three Waters, the future of law, the environmental strategy, the business wellness review. I'm just wondering whether we're actually taking on just more and more load on the staff and on the councillors to review this. And if this is not urgent, why are we picking this up now? I can understand you wanted to do it early because of what's possible in 2023, but is there not enough on the plate currently?
The reason we're doing this is we are required under sections 158, 159 of the Local Government Act to review all bylaws within 10 years of them being made. So we would certainly be looking at starting this next year in any case, but we've also got the Public Places Bylaw, the Cemeteries Bylaw, Waste Bylaw are all due for review next year as well. So the thinking was to try to bring one of them forward, and we just thought with the water reforms happening as well, it would be an opportunity to at least get some community view on part of the regulatory system for water supplies before the Waters team got too far into all of that work. So that was why we were bringing it now. I do take your point around the amount of work that is going on. Unfortunately, we do have a statutory obligation to be doing this work at some point. If not now, then it'll be next year.
Thanks,
Through you, Chair, just following on from Roger's comments, I note in your report that you say that we've got 2 years grace before we have to do it. And I'm fully in line with Councillor Gordon on this one. You know, with the reforms coming up, potentially, I suppose, if the government gets its way, waters isn't going to be our concern in terms of the bylaw. There's a cost associated with this, apart from the time and the effort that the staff and the community have got to put into it. So if there is a possibility of deferring it for a couple of years until the review on the three waters is concluded, then that would be where I would recommend that we head, rather than trying to bring it in early.
I'd support that suggestion, Jim.
Mary, I think you're looking like you want to add something to that, and maybe Graham afterwards if it's not clear.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to just a little bit more of the reasons for doing it now. So I certainly acknowledge that the water reforms, you know, they're coming in, and even though it's 2024 that we would be expecting that to be happening, it's very, very unlikely that the centralised water management would be actually dealing with the individual districts' water bylaws immediately. So we would need something in place for at least a while after that, regardless. And also the fact that there's already some issues that have been identified that have been an issue for a while, which the Waters team, part of why the Waters team requested that this was brought forward. And that's particularly to do with the backflow prevention, and also the fact that the universal water metering came in 2018, and there's quite a few wording changes that need to happen. I do, if Graham has anything more to add, or I see that Diana, our legal counsel, is here, and she has been in conversations a bit more with Renee and the Waters team, and she may have a little bit more insight.
Morning, Diana.
Good morning. Yeah, through the chair. Yes, so there were some changes. So currently, you know, we would like backflow prevention to be mandatory, and that's currently not reflected in the bylaw. Same with metering. So there were sort of updates needed to modernise to our current requirements. So that's some of the reasons. And there's also to do with the mapping of supply water areas. We wanted changes to the bylaw in order to be able to take the actual locations to be taken out of the bylaw and just to be made by council resolution and then placed on our website. So that gives sort of ongoing flexibility for as things change over time. So that was sort of more the policy reasons around wanting to make changes now.
Thank you, Diana and Mary. Jim, did you have anything you wanted to add or respond to in terms of that issue?
Oh, I'd be interested in what it's going to cost, because if we don't need to do it, then but look, if it's necessary, well, and that's the feeling of staff, well, we move ahead. But I'm still support Roger's comments, I suppose, about the workload that's on everybody and the reviews and the public consultation and all of those issues that we're facing at the moment. So yeah, if it's critical that we do it for the safety of the public in terms of backflows, then we've got to do it, I suppose. But I still think we need to challenge some of these reforms, I suppose, or policy changes, because it's just getting beyond our capability, I suppose, to respond.
Yeah, it's a pretty big workload for all involved. There's no two ways about that. Does anybody else have any questions for either Graham, Mary or Dana while they're with us on this matter in relation to their report? No further questions. So Graham, did you just want to take us through what our options are then in terms of progressing forward with this and the recommendation you've provided?
Thank you, Chair. We've actually just discussed the options, which is either we move forward with this review or we don't. The risk is that, as was pointed out by Mary, that WIPA could end up in a situation where there's no actual bylaw because the water entity hasn't got around to doing it soon enough. That's just because of the timing of our particular bylaw. That would be unfortunate. I take His Worship's point and Councillor Gordon's point around workloads as well. That was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring this forward, because of seeing the bow wave of workload next year as well. Whether that's worked or not is a matter for others to discuss, I suppose. So the option is either to park this or we move forward with it. If we move forward, there's still some drafting to do. We want to do an external legal review as well, to consult mid-May to mid-June, so that we've got plenty of time to deal with any submissions that come in for when you're back after your July break from meetings. And then we can actually get this done and dusted and adopted before the council elections. So then this one will be on the book. So what we're asking today is that you determine this is the way forward. Now, that is the recommendation, and ask us to go ahead and review the Water Supply Bylaw 2013.
Thanks, Graham. Question there from Lou and then Roger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, I wanted to ask what the role is of Tiarawai. We have this projection at the moment of the three waters, but Tiarawai has actually been put in place, as far as I understand. Most of the infrastructure is actually, or the people in charge have been placed there. Do they control the quality of water, and do they have an impact on this? And what impact do they have on this in passing this law? Or bylaw it is.
I'm not sure that I can answer that one, Councillor. I'm going to ask for some help here.
Through the chair, I'm certainly not an expert in terms of what they're doing, but I know that they're currently developing new drinking water standards, which will become, I think they're aimed to come in place in the beginning of July, and they certainly have that regulatory function in terms of approving drinking water plans, which don't need to be in place till the end of the year. But they wouldn't have the power to make this type of bylaw, which would still sits with council. But a lot of their functions and powers are set in the Water Services Act, which has recently come into force.
Thank you for that. I just wanted clarification if that is possible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Diana. Roger.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Graham. Just a couple of questions additional to my previous points. And it follows on from Mayor Jim's question. You've not responded in terms of an indicative cost of conducting this review, but perhaps the other question is there a budget provision for this review in our current year or in the annual plan for next year? That's question one. The second question is, if we have, as is suggested, a 2-year period after 2003, so does that mean that the current bylaw would in fact be an active bylaw until 2025? And in terms of making changes to the bylaw in the interests of public health, how much of an issue is the current backflow or non-provision of limiting a backflow in the current law, and how much of a problem is it creating, and can we handle that problem by other legislation and rules within council? 3 questions. Sorry.
Thank you. I might need to throw this to Diana. There's some legal questions in there, I think. And there's also a budgetary question, and that's probably more a question for Kirsty, if you're there and can come in on this one, please.
Kirsty is there. Morning, Kirsty.
Morning, through you, Madam Chair, to respond to the issue of budget. There is sufficient funding available within the budget for this current financial year for bylaw review. And in terms of what that would likely cover, so that would likely cover any advertising or communications collateral that might be required. Any external legal review potentially could be utilised by that funding, but just to provide some reassurance to elected members that there is sufficient funding available for the review.
Thanks, Kirsty. Diana, were you able to address one of the other aspects of Councillor Gordon's questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of the bylaw, yes, you're correct. It would stay in force until 2025. So we would technically have until then to review the bylaw. In terms of how critical the backflow device issue is, I'm afraid I have to take advice from the water services team, who unfortunately aren't here today. So I can't advise definitively how critical that is. So we'd have to come back to you on that particular issue.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, all 3 of those answers doesn't seem to indicate that there's an urgency for review of this bylaw at this point in time when we have so much else on our plates. So I stick with my previous point that I don't think we should progress this.
Madam Chair, could I just say that I think the backflow is absolutely critical for a safe water supply. If you have a low pressure and it starts drawing contaminated water in, there's big trouble down the lines. Jim, you know a little bit about this as well as I do, but I think it's actually a critical part. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble with people having a water supply that's been contaminated, and the cost of that is just not worth thinking about.
Yeah,
Have we any evidence of that being a problem now, Graham?
Roger, I didn't get what you said.
I just said, do we have any evidence that that is a problem now?
We have had some evidence, but I think they're trying to get ahead of the 8 ball and make sure that they've got it covered so that everybody that has to comply is complying, and they have that resource to do that, Roger. I see Claire nodding her head. She knows a little bit about it as well.
Claire, did you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I definitely support what Graham said, because I know that staff have said they're really concerned about the increased standard of compliance that's coming with Taumata ROI. And so, yeah, I do believe they're trying to get ahead of the 8 ball. So I'm in support of, going ahead with the review. There's budget and resourcing now. I appreciate that, we've got a big workload, but I wouldn't want to be holding things back, thinking that, we're smoothing the bow wave, where in actual fact, I think staff would really like to see it progressed.
Thanks, Claire. Marcus, you've been patiently waiting.
I'm wondering, if we do put this review on hold, does that mean we can allocate those resources towards item 9 with cats?
You're a bit cheeky. No, I think we've probably grilled staff enough on this issue. So I think if I can just turn on the basis that there's no further discussion on the report, and Graham, you've concluded everything you're going to discuss. I'll draw your attention then to the recommendation appearing on page 38, which is not only to receive Graham's report, but to determine that the bylaw is the most appropriate mechanism to address the issues relating to the management of water supply. And then we also further resolve that a review in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act is necessary. So Andrew, you're happy to move that. Claire is going to second that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
I won't vote against it.
What was that, Roger? You're not going to vote against it?
I'm not going to vote against it, but I just registered my concern over whether it was absolute. Yep.
And you know that's a genuine and reasonable question to ask, absolutely, in the circumstances. So there you go, Graham. You have your direction. The recommendation has been put and passed. So many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to my team for supporting me on that one.
It's a team effort. Excellent. So we'll move on then to the next item, which is the determination report for amendments to the Waipa District Public Places Bylaw in respect of antisocial driving. Something that I'm really excited personally to see so quickly on our agenda, given the concerns that have been raised by elected members, both at this level and a community board for a few months now, in response to our residents' concerns. And to be fair, in many instances, have been pretty harrowing instances. So, Graham, this is one of yours as well. So take it away.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this report is to determine if council should proceed further with examining the options, or what options are available for trying to tackle antisocial behaviour or antisocial driving behaviour at specific locations around Waipa. And we do this by amending clause 29 and schedule 4 of the Public Places Bylaw. We're calling it antisocial driving because it's a generic term. So we're trying to ingrain that terminology. This is a matter that has been raised by the Te Awamutu Community Board, and Council has undertaken some initial research with New Zealand Police. Now, I hope we can take the report as read, but I'd like to explain the 4 options presented. Sometimes it can be easier speaking it than reading it or trying to write it. So the first one is that we review and amend clause 29, and only clause 29 and schedule 4, which is associated with clause 29, and that we do it now. We think it's doable at this time. The second option is that we bring forward the statutory review of the Public Places Bylaw itself from 2023, and I note comments from the previous item. That would include the amendments to clause 29 and schedule 4, but also the rest of the bylaw. Not so sure that that's doable at this stage. The third option is that we do amend clause 29 and the schedules, but we wait until the statutory review of the bylaw next year. Or the fourth option is that we don't proceed at all, noting that there are risks in trying to tackle this problem. It's potentially costly for signage, street marking, road corridor changes, all those kind of things. But the effect might be that we simply move the problem from one location to another that's then not covered by the bylaw. So we're potentially making someone else's, or the problem moves from one place and on to somebody else. So I see Brian is in the meeting as well, so I'm sure will be able to help with some of the more technical aspects of this as well. And Diana's still here, I hope, for any legal advice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. First off the block there is Councillor Gordon and then Mike.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Graham. I'm going to support the recommended option here. Again, because of what I mentioned last time, again, a full review now of the bylaw, I think, is just adding that additional pressure, and I don't think the rest of the bylaw is showing any challenges or any reason for review at this stage. I certainly don't think we should leave it. I think the issue is there now, and if we can introduce something into the existing bylaw that's going to help our guys manage that antisocial behaviour out there, then I think we need to do that as soon as we possibly can. So certainly support option 1. Thanks.
Thanks, Roger. Mike.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Yeah, just acknowledging the good work that's gone on here, and I guess I'm picking up on your point about we might identify some areas and shifting the problem from one place to another. But to me, it's a bit like cycle tracks. Like we start off with a strategy and we just simply have to build on that. And this is no different. Like identify the areas, deal with those areas. Yes, there's some costs, but the opportunity cost of us doing nothing is a whole lot of angst out there and frustration and danger. And it is actually degrading our community fairly rapidly and making it a far more unsafe and unpleasant place to live in lots of these areas. So though we may be only to tackle some identified sites, I'm sure this is a bylaw and a strategy that will need some longevity to it and needs to be constantly revisited and added on to. And it's just going to be a cost of doing business in Waipa, as it is in lots of other places in the country, because these people are absolute menaces. So yeah, I'm pleased this is on the agenda.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Any other comments? Graham?
Yeah, thank you. Great intentions. I really wonder whether we've got the ability, along with the police, to enforce it. You just got to look at what's happening with the burglaries now that can't be investigated because of the police overload, and that's my only concern.
Yeah, look, I think any discussion with any police officer, probably anywhere in the country right now, would tell you that they've got capacity constraints. But with that said, Graham, I agree that however, I think this is one of the levers we can pull, one of the few levers we can pull in local government, and I'm all for pulling it and pulling it really hard, because there are a lot of people, particularly in rural areas, who do tend to feel like they're a bit forgotten in local government and council activity, whose lives are just absolutely miserable and feel set upon in their own farms and their own land and their own homes because of these people's behaviour. And I guess if we're able to offer them some potential lifeline that's then up to the police to then activate, then I think it's incumbent upon us to do that personally. Talking to the people from Pukeatua and out Bulmer's Landing and out Arapuni Way, they live almost in fear most weekends, So, and it's not just one night; it's often several, and they're all around the district. So, I'm all for supporting this. Mike, have you still got your hand up from before? And then Lou, and then Mayor Jim.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't. So just to add on to that. But this will be an ongoing battle. I hear what you're saying, Graham. I totally hear that, and I think we probably all are a little bit fearful of that too. But I would argue that it doesn't mean we shouldn't try here. And really, that strategy, not just identifying sites, but the comms team have got a big job. We as councillors have a big job here, but the biggest job is with the community, and the community need to be really engaged in what they can do here to help, and that is. Whether it's Star 555, whether there's numbers or whether it's footage, if we really front foot an ongoing campaign to try and nail these menaces, is what I'm going to call them, then I think we can get the community to actually make a difference for their own little communities. We have to do this together, but we have to lead this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Lou, and then Mayor Jim.
I'm very supportive of option one as it comes up. Now, I think it gives us the tools that we absolutely need to put in place to be able to allow police to terminate these people at force. I agree with Mike and with you, Madam Chair, that we are in progress. This is going to be a steady progression over a period of time as locations are found. And I did notice in Brad's previous report, we had the sustained loss of tractions even in our cemeteries. All right, I mean, this is not just the roads, we're talking to local people, but it's all around the community. So we need to have these tools to be able to do it and allow our police to integrate with this. So thank you.
Just quickly, Madam Chair, look, I fully support this move in discussions with police when we've had these problems out and about. The issue about appropriate bylaws has come up, and it's just one way that we can assist the police. I acknowledge Graham's concern is that they're extremely busy anyway, but if it's just one small thing that we can do to help, the police and the communities, then I'm certainly all for it. But I certainly take on board Graham's comment that the police are stretched and need resourcing as well. But if this helps, then I'm all for it.
Thanks, Mayor Jim, I agree. So I think, Graham, you've covered all of your report as is required, and it looks to me like there are no further questions or comments from members on said report. So I'll draw your attention then to the recommendation appearing on page 89.
Happy to move.
You're going to move, Mike, and I will second, because this has been a real big issue for me. So I'll put it to the membership. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent. There you go, Graham. And can I just acknowledge that staff have actually responded really quickly to the calls from elected members, both at this level and the community board, to address this issue. It's I was quite, dare I say, startled to see it appear so quickly. So thank you. It's really good to show that there's real response to our community's needs.
Thank you, Chair. I think it needs to be acknowledged that we are still in a research phase. We haven't got precise locations as yet, but we're from the police, but we're working towards that. When we know the full option, once we know the locations, we can look at it on a case-by-case basis and bring those options forward into and look at how we might draft amendments to the bylaw.
Fantastic. At least the ball is rolling.
It's rolling.
Wonderful. So moving on then to our next item, which is yours also, Graham, the draft animal nuisance bylaw changes coming back from our hearing recently. So I will hand it over to you, Graham.
Okay, thank you again, Chair. So the committee will recall that the deliberations on the draft animal nuisance bylaw are currently adjourned from the February meeting. And this report is to get clarification from the committee as to what we should be doing next. Now, there were two key problems at last month's meeting. The first, well, issues, not necessarily problems. Clause 5.4, which, if you need reminding of that, I can share a screen with clause 5.4. That was shown to be at odds with beekeeping best practice. Now, we can rectify this by referring back to some expert evidence on beekeeping that we received in support of Plan Change 18. Now, that evidence hadn't actually been made available to us prior to the last meeting. So using that evidence, we can meet some or all of the bee submitters' concerns, but more importantly, it will give the committee a firm basis of evidence on which to base its decisions. And that's the key thing, the good decision making. The other issue that came up, of course, was the issue of controlling cats, which the committee considered. Now, that was outside the original scope, but it remains on the table. So we've identified 4 options for moving forward. The first is to amend clause 5.4 so it's consistent with that expert evidence. We return to the committee next month and continue the deliberations, leaving the cats to one side to be considered at a later date. This would mean that we could finish this project quickly, and the cats can be researched when the resources are available. The second option is exactly the same as that, except that the amended clause 5.4 we run past the bee submitters first. I'm not sure whether that actually adds any value and could actually cause confusion if some of the submitters disagree with the expert evidence. So what do you use then? Option 3 is that we pause the project and keep the deliberations in adjournment. We then research the cat control issue, and later on, at a date to be determined, we ask the committee if the draft bylaw should be amended to include the cats, because we don't know whether the cats actually need to be included. Depends what the research comes up with. So in other words, option 3 is we pause the process to allow the cats time to catch up. This is what's known as the cat's pause. Fourth option is that we stop the project completely, go back to the drawing board, start all over again. That's a whole new process, whole new set of reports, research, consultation, and so on. There's no time frame for when that would be, but it may not be any time soon. And in the meantime, we're not giving effect to Plan Change 18. So option 1 is recommended. It means we can do what we can do while we can, i.e. now. And as I say, there's no certainty that the cats will, or there's even public opinion or support for including cat control. So sorry, it was a bit of a long introduction. I'm getting a message from Joe to talk about a revised recommendation. I will double check that while you're discussing the issue.
Thank you, Graham. I love the cat's paws. So Claire had her hand up, and then Marcus.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Yeah, I'm in support of option 1, which is incorporating the expert evidence from the bee expert in there. And I am really I accept your rationale about delaying provisions for cats, and I do think that needs to be well researched. And so I'm in favour of taking a bit more time on that, and leaving that to a later stage, and getting some really good advice, and also consult widely with our community as well to work out the best approach there.
Thanks, Claire. Marcus, you're hot on this whole cat issue. Obviously, you'll have some comments.
Yeah, I agree with Claire's comments. I just don't want to see it to be dropped again, because it comes up quite often. And if we go, yes, we're going to research it later, I think we actually do need to put some positive plans in place. And we do ask our communities now if it is an issue, or if I'm just barking up the wrong tree. So I don't want to see it dropped again for another 5 years down the track. I think we should go out to the public now and just see what the appetite is, and see if it is actually an issue.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Mayor Jim, and then Councillor Lou Brown.
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly support the recommendation as it stands. The issue over cats, I think we should be just putting that to one side. My reading of the tea leaves is that there's going to be some national direction come out on cats in terms of control. And I can't see any point in us investing a whole lot of time and effort in going through a bylaw process. And there will be, I would suggest, I was going to say a 50-50 split in the community. I think probably it would come down more in favour of cats by the number of cat ownership statistics that we've got in the country. So it needs to be a national approach, I think. Otherwise, we're going to have different local bodies with different controls. It'll be an absolute nightmare. So I would leave the cat issue in abeyance until it's sorted out by central government.
Thanks for that insight, Mayor Jim. Lou.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we've got to look at the background of this bylaw, particularly in the fact that the original intent was to take away the having to get a resource consent to have bees or keep bees within a residential or an urban area. And I think that that's important to go back and remember that it was quite an expensive process to do that. And that's why we actually put this perception that we needed to have perhaps operate under a bylaw. I agree with the amendment in the clause 1, or the 1, where we amend the clause and we go back to regarding keeping bees and take the draft back to the committee to continue deliberation. I think getting the issue of cats involved with this will only muddy the whole thing at the moment. And I do agree with just leaving that to one side. Really, I think the nuisance bylaw is operational in Hamilton and other areas, and it works well for them under the constraints that it has. And I strongly support that we work with the first clause, as I say, clause 1 of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Andrew Brown.
Yeah, I agree with the comments made so far, and I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thanks, Andrew. And cousin Lou will second that.
Yeah, excuse me, Chair, if I may interrupt. We do have a suggestion for an alternative to recommendation B, and I'm going, and that is, I've just lost it again. Sorry, bear with me.
Accept the staff recommendation to amend clause 5.4 to be consistent with the
expert evidence on bees submitted. This is the new bit, submitted on Waipa District Council's District Plan Change 18, which includes recommendations for the numbers of hives per site, the placement of hives, site size and location. Now, I don't know if I can share the screen so you can actually read it. Let's see what I can do. If you'll bear with me, I will try and find it. I think that's it. Okay, this is what it's looking like. It just anchors that expert evidence to that particular document. So that's the one that we'll be coming back with, and you can base your decisions on when we recommence the deliberations, rather than any expert evidence that comes in from anywhere else.
Okay, so it's essentially just a clarification on that expert evidence.
Yeah.
So technically, I have the Cousins Brown move and second the original recommendation. So on the assumption that our elected membership would prefer a more elaborate recommendation at paragraph B, I guess I need to put that recommendation and see if there is an appetite to accept or reject the current recommendation. So I'll put it to the membership. All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against? I'm against.
Could I ask a question, Chair?
Hold on a minute, sorry. Roger. Can we have that removed from the screen just for now so we can see members?
Sorry.
Please.
Sorry.
Oh, what's gone on here? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I've lost everybody.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, there we go, you're back. My apologies. Roger, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
I'm sorry, I should have asked this before we went to the vote. One of the questions that I raised was a question of location and whether the proximity to public reserves or something like that, even within urban area, would be considered in terms of the number and siting of hives on a boundary. And I'm unsure whether that comes into this expert advice that's been received in terms of size and location. But if I don't want a specific debate on that now, but perhaps just ask Graham to be cognizant of that request that was actually made at that last meeting.
Yeah, and through the chair, I can confirm that is included in the expert evidence.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. So we need to get back to the recommendation as it stands in our agenda, as opposed to the amended paragraph B. I put the motion. I couldn't see how it fell on account of the screen being divided. I'll put the motion again. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Myself, Jim.
Yeah.
We might have to.
So, Madam Chair, just for clarification, the only reason I'm against it is so that we can put the amended clause B in.
Exactly, the more highly defined one. Hence the suggestion from staff to anchor it to that evidence at that particular plan change hearing. So,
Right,
So
ask it again.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that people understood that. So we've got to wipe the recommendation as it stands now, and then put a fresh recommendation with the new B in it.
The new
That's
B in
what
it,
we're
yes.
trying to achieve.
Yes.
I think you have to start again, Susan.
So here we go again. I think this is the third time. In terms of the current recommendation that the Browns have put and seconded, I'd like people to indicate whether they support or reject that. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Against?
No.
Against. So the motion fails. So in sight of that lost motion, I would like to second a motion from the chair with an amended paragraph B as it appeared on the screen earlier that Graham provided us with a greater description of that expert evidence on bees. Would the members like to see that again, or are we comfortable with that?
Comfortable.
I'll put the motion. Andrew's going to second it.
Yeah.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Whew. That was a bit of a buzz. Right.
It was slightly unfortunate that it was it was recommendation B.
B.
On this one, wasn't it? So,
not quite a cat pause though, is it?
well, no, but I was concerned that the vote might just get through by a whisker.
Oh dear, this is getting bad.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll move on.
Excellent, thank you, Graham. Moving on then to our last substantive item in our agenda, which is the proposed fees and charges for 2022-23. Graham, this is one of yours also.
This is another one of mine, yes. So this hopefully is relatively straightforward because it's something we do each year. We're proposing to consult this year on the entire schedule of fees and charges for 2022-23. It gives the community an opportunity to see and comment on all our fees and charges for the first time in a few years, because many are normally consulted on anyway because they arise either from a statute or from a bylaw, but others have been adopted by resolution, and that's not especially transparent. So this year we thought we'd go out with everything. This year, we've added an inflationary 2% across the board where appropriate and subject to some rounding as well. But some individual fees have increased by more than the 2%, and these are in building control, cemeteries, and curbside recycling. We've got some new fees in building control, dog control, and utility access requirements, in the sense that the not-for-profit events will not necessarily be exempt from traffic management plan reviews. And we're also deleting altogether the fees for Cambridge Town Hall, as council's no longer responsible for those. So these show in the schedule and the statement of proposal for information only. We're not really looking for submissions, but we want people to be aware that they will drop from the schedule. So we'll do, if you approve, consultation from 7th of March to the 8th of April, and we can then bring this back to you hopefully in May to conclude in time for getting all the invoices out necessary for the new financial year. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Graham and then Lou.
Just in terms, Graham, of the curbside recycling, at the bottom of that paragraph is that this is due to the increased cost of purchasing new bins. It doesn't take into account that we've incurred a hell of a lot of costs of having to take contaminated stuff to the waste. Should they not be, I was going to say, included, or something in there that says the cost also has increased because, you know, we've just spent 600,000 between us disposing of stuff in the landfill? Sorry, I just wondered if that should be done.
The information I've been given that it's around the cost of the bins. I believe that other issue is being considered elsewhere. whether that's coming into fees and charges, no one's brought that forward to me to make any further increases.
Yeah. I just hope it would. Thank you.
Yeah,
no, that's cool. Long as it's been, long as that cost is sheeted home to that service, because I think that's where the costs lie, rather than a general rate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Graham. Lou, and then Bruce, and then Mirjam.
Just a quick point of clarification through you, Madam Chair. I just see the cemetery fees have increased by 10% for that's casket interment. Does that include ashes as well?
Now then, I'm not sure. Let me just call up the cemetery fees. It's a long document, and as you'll be aware, it doesn't always want to scroll in a hurry, does it?
If I can through the chair, and no, there is no no changes in, or there is a slight adjustment in terms of ashes, but it is very minor, going from $148 to $150. The main increase in terms of those fees is to ensure that we align with what others are offering around us in terms of other areas and districts.
Yeah, and that ashes increase will be the inflationary addition.
So those are all on page 117 in terms of diligent, or page 9 of the agenda item itself.
Thank you for that, Sally.
Thanks, Sally. Bruce, and then Mirjam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 161, and I wonder whether we should compete with vets and supermarkets about being able to buy doggy do bags from the council. Is that right? It's on page 161 under dog registration, a new charge.
I believe that's a new service that we are offering. I don't know whether there's anything that we make on those, but it's all part of encouraging dog owners to clean up after their dogs, which is obviously important.
Yeah, I haven't got a problem with that, but I just wonder whether, it'd be interesting to see how competitive council can be against these other outlets. But no, I'm happy.
Thanks, Bruce. Mirjam, and then Mike.
Through you, Madam Chair, fully support going out and with all of our fees and charges. I would just really like us to make sure that we look at making sure that those fees can be, I suppose, backed up in terms of the actual costs that we run up, because some of the fees are getting pretty high, and if we can't actually justify those charges, we should be looking at them in terms of time spent and overheads, I suppose. So look, I think it's a great opportunity to look at them all, but we need to be careful that we just don't apply an inflationary figure and it doesn't actually apply to actual and reasonable.
Yeah, through the chair, we did a complete review of the fees and charges last year, coming into the LTP. So everything should have been thoroughly gone into then, and the anticipation is that at the same time as the next LTP, we'll redo a thorough a review of all fees and charges. So that does need to be kept. We do need to keep up with those reviews.
Yeah, it's important that they can be justified, isn't it, in terms of those costs? Right. Good morning, Miriata. You've joined us. Unfortunately, her camera isn't working, but she is able to hear us. So good morning. Morning. Mike, you have your hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you through the chair. Hey, just on page 114, I note on page 113 there's all the fees for different size dwellings, single story, two story, based on square meterage. But on page 114, row 16, that transportable building partnership fee, and it's a new fee. It's fairly substantial, of 1965. I guess just what is it, and what used to be there for transportable buildings? I'm assuming that's for.
I'm without a member of the building team here. This is new. I don't think that there was a separate fee for that, so they were probably covering it just on a time basis. This is so that the buildings can be inspected prior to them going off-site and out of the district, and so on. So I think that is probably based on the amount of inspection time that's required for that.
Right. So could I just get not now, obviously, but an answer on that, because maybe it fell under the up to 100 single dwelling type thing, where it used to be 2,993 on row 9. Maybe it fell under that, and now they've realised that actually there's not quite as much work in it. It is a new fee and it is less. I'd just like to get an answer on that. Not now, but just that'd be great, Graham.
Yeah, just trying to see if I can find an email on that. And the answer is not quickly enough to be able to help you in this meeting. Sorry.
Right, fine.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this matter? I understand that there is a slight alteration to the recommendation. I had raised with staff the possibility of adding something to the submission form explaining what was involved in terms of submitting verbally to the committee, and I'm kind of hopeful that that might be a generic change to most of the submission forms. You'll all be aware that we regularly have hearings or submission processes whereby people are a little bit uncertain as to what will be required when they appear in council, and as a result often have people pull out. So I just thought maybe if it could be a bit more a greater explanation as to what submitting and verbally to council might mean. So the suggestion is that paragraph be amended with the addition at the end of that current recommendation B to say, subject to adding wording on the submission form to explain what is involved in submitting verbally to the committee.
And I do have a draft that I can share if it's not going to mess up all your screens again.
Yeah, just want to see if that finds any favour amongst elected members. I'm just mindful of the time that we often have, a handful of submitters, and we have a lot of people pull out, and it's not really good use of everybody's time. So if they have a better understanding of what verbally submitting to council or being heard by council may mean, it might help the process.
I agree with your comment there.
Cool. Okay, so Graham, can I ask you to share that just so we all understand what that wording is? Yeah. It's just an amendment to paragraph B.
Yeah, okay, so you can see it there highlighted, just so you can see how it fits onto the submission form. There's the question as to whether you want to present verbally, and obviously it won't be highlighted, but that's the wording that we've come up with so far.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful because I don't think people, unless you're familiar with council practices and council hearings, people generally have no idea what it entails. And I just think it's a more user-friendly way of encouraging people or explaining to people what's required of them if they want to be heard verbally.
Madam Chair, yeah, I'm in favour of more information being given to people thinking about making a submission, but I just wonder whether or not it'd be good to do a video about it as well, and so that they could actually have videoed perhaps a meeting and perhaps someone making a submission and seeing what it looks like, because people are used to having access to video material these days, and that doesn't have to be particularly long, and just so it might just alleviate that hesitancy.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Claire. Do you think maybe something like providing a link at the conclusion of that wording saying examples of hearings and submitters can be seen here?
Yeah, and even if it's just, a staged one, where it could be one of us councillors or a staff member doing it, because obviously, a member of the public might not like to be the subject of one of those videos, but it just gives them an idea of how it would all work. And they think, oh yeah, I could do that, you know. Yeah.
Rather than perhaps linking it directly on the page, because that's obviously a bit of work to be done, is there a chance that we might be able to direct people back to our website, and that's something that the comms team or whomever might be able to mock up for us, as you've suggested, Claire?
Through the chair, yes, I'm sure I can work with the team on that. And I think if we just do a link to the website will mean that links might be out of date, etc. on any form.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lily.
Thanks for that suggestion, Claire. So we have that recommendation A appearing on page 102 of our recommendation to receive Graham's report, and then the paragraph B obviously is slightly amended to include the wording before you, so as to make the form somewhat more user friendly. Can we remove that, please, Graham? Thank you. So do I have somebody who's happy to move that those two recommendations subject to that change to B? Marcus, and Liz is going to second. All those in favour say aye.
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 You're on mute, Susan.
I don't know how that happened. I had my finger on the thing the whole time, but anyway. So I take it you heard me up until moving the motion. Excellent. So it's been moved and seconded and put and passed. Excellent. So I believe that it brings us to the end of our agenda.